Well, I'm happy today that Herrick Brown, who's the curator of the Herbarium at the University of South Carolina, is with me. And you have been on a big, exciting trip.
Yes. So about a quarter of the way around the world, in fact. So left here for Hawaii. And I was a little apprehensive at first because the prospect of flying in a plane over a vast ocean and landing on a small island that's no bigger than Richland County here in South Carolina was a little bit disconcerting, but it's safe, and we got there okay.
Okay, but it's a crazy place in so many ways because it's just a melting pot, not only of people, but the plant stuff that goes on there, I think.
Right, exactly, yeah. So one of the initial impressions you have, and if you go there and you land in Honolulu, you're going to be on the leeward side of the island. So it's kind of the southwestern side of the island, and it's at the leave of the winds. So it tends to be drier because there's a mountain range on the northeast side that basically creates this what we'd call a rain shadow.
Okay, yeah.
All the rain really kind of falls on the northeastern side, and by the time the winds get over to the southwest, it's dry. So initially, you kind of have this concept of Hawaii as being this lush tropical island, and it looks like a desert landscape. So it was kind of this, okay, I'm starting to understand this, with my ecology brain turned on. I'm thinking about these things. And so we went out into some of the more popular areas that people would visit when they go there. Of course, Hawaii being a chain of volcanic islands, there are some extinct volcanoes, and one that was nearby was called Diamond Head, and it's a state recreation area. And you go into this crater and you're walking through, and it reminded me of things that I'd seen in like documentaries of like African savannas, lots of grasses, sort of acacia-looking trees that are sort of stunted in growth. And as I started looking closer, I started thinking about some of the news stories that I had heard a few years prior to this of the wildfires in Lahaina on Maui. And one of the potential contributors to that catastrophe was this introduced grass called buffalo grass, which is actually African in origin. And I thought, I wonder if that's this stuff. And sure enough, it is. It's all over Oahu as well.
Wow.
And apparently does good in that sort of dry climate on the leeward side. And just
spread the fire like mad.
Yes. Yeah. Imagine just vast fields of dry straw.
Gosh.
And it's funny, it's buffalo grass is the common name, but one of the connections that might, draw you closer to home is that if you've ever walked through a field and found these like stickery things in your socks, called sand spurs or something like that. It's the same genus of grass. This one isn't quite as stickery, but if you look at the fruits on it, it looks really similar. And so, no wonder this is just
so not a good place to walk in sandals.
No.
Okay. Well, did you go to see some places that were a little greener? Or?
Yeah. So we tracked up to Manoa Falls, which is it's kind of on the leeward side of the mountain range, but still in the mountains. So it was nice and tropical, rainforesty kind of look. And one of the first things that kind of strikes you there, as a botanist at least, is that you start seeing things that you recognize from garden centers and houseplants.
Sure.
But they're growing as these huge canopy trees. So things like what you would call rubber tree or Ficus elastica, towering giants with all these aerial roots popping out of them. Bird's nest ferns stuck to the sides of these trees, staghorn ferns. Just an amazing kind of mix of stuff. And so, and that was the other thing that occurred to me was like, so this rubber tree would be originally from parts of South America, and the staghorn ferns would be originally from Southeastern Asia. And then if you look at a map or you look at the globe, you can kind of see that it makes sense. That Hawaii is basically 6 time zones from the East Coast, and it's 6 time zones from easternmost parts of Asia. And so it's kind of like right smack in the middle of those two places.
Okay.
So as a sort of stopping off point for a variety of different cultures, plants have been transported from those parts of the world. And so you have this weird mix of species from all over the world now.
Herrick, I have a necklace I usually wear, but I have a different one on today, and this is something I think they gave y'all in your check-in package at the hotel.
This is actually made out of a type of seed from something called candle nut. Now, this is a plant that is actually in the same family that would give us things like poinsettias, euphorbiaceae.
Oh,
Yeah. So, and a lot of those things are kind of toxic. They're not things that you would want to eat. However, this particular seed from the candlenut tree is something that can be roasted and is then edible. When it's polished up like this, of course, it's also quite attractive.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. Another connection that it might have, and some things that have been brought into South Carolina over the years, are that I have a specimen of one right here. This is tongue oil tree. Now, this is kind of a kissing cousin of the candlenut tree.
Okay.
At one point, they were in the same genus, and then botanists got involved and said, they're a little bit different, so they split things apart. But you can kind of see the fruits on this tongue oil tree, or they've been cut open, but there are seeds in there, and they are about the same size as these. It's very similar in size and structure.
Is this a native or an introduced plant?
This would be a plant that would have been what the Hawaiians would call a canoe plant. So one that would have been brought by some of the first Polynesians to settle the area, probably actually as a food plant or what they would call a famine food. So when times were really rough and they couldn't find other things, they would rely on this. But it wasn't like their primary source of nutrition.
Whoa. Yeah. Okay. What else you going to show us?
One specimen here to kind of illustrate the challenges that we have as herbarium curators in fitting an elephant ear on a standard size herbarium sheet. And so the leaf is sort of folded up here.
Sure.
But the leaf of this plant would be used in some of the traditional cooking methods as a way of like wrapping material that would be sort of cooked in an underground pit. And then, of course, the starchy sort of tubery root structure also can be pounded into sort of a paste and made into something that is also edible.
Okay. Well, let's see another one.
This is an orchid.
An orchid?
Yeah, in the genus Spathoglottis.
Okay.
And it would have originally occurred in like the Philippines, those sorts of areas. And so there aren't too many orchids that are native to the Hawaiian Islands. A lot of the plants, again, that have been brought there are recently introduced. And I'm not exactly sure how this one managed to get there, but it wouldn't be considered one of the native species. And at any rate, it's quite attractive when it's flowering. Has this nice sort of chartreuse, or I'm not chartreuse. Trying to think of pinkish purple, bright colored flower. And this specimen here was collected by a fellow named Otto Degener back in the 1930s, who was a botanist, and he was kind of connected with New York Botanical Garden. And the specimen here is actually past flowering. So you can see this one structure here is actually the fruiting capsule of the plant. And then let's see, one of the other things that I saw there that was another canoe plant was breadfruit. And this is a tree that is related to mulberries.
Yeah, and we've heard about breadfruit, in history. And
And I think it's called that because, basically it's like mana, it's bread, it's the stuff of loaf. And it's a really remarkable tree. It has these interesting sort of lobed leaves that look almost like fingers kind of stretching off of the trunk. And then it produces these massive globose, almost football-sized fruits. So you can get a lot of food out of just one fruit. And so I was thinking about that. I was like, that's so cool. It looks just like the Osage orange that I've seen growing in random places around South Carolina. Yeah, and if you look at the internal structure, so I've got a specimen of Osage orange, which is
native one of these, to here.
Native to this, native to North America.
North America,
but I think originally probably Texas, Oklahoma.
Yeah,
area,
and maybe
it was
great for arrows, and so we think the Native Americans brought it. With them, perhaps.
Yeah, and there's a whole history of like how did this thing even exist if nothing ate it to disperse it.
Dark. Fun name.
But here, this specimen's really interesting because we do have sort of a cross section of the fruit that shows that interesting structure.
Yes.
If you were to open up a breadfruit fruit, it would look just like that, but maybe 5-10 times bigger.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
This specimen from Otto Degener again, this is again from the island of Oahu, 1930s. And this is a specimen of Acacia koa. So you may have heard of koa wood before. It's a native tree to Hawaii, and it was one of the things that the islands were known for because it's a very strong wood. Apparently, koa means something like strong or iron or something like that. And its closest relative that folks might be familiar with here in South Carolina is what we would call mimosa tree.
Okay.
And if you're familiar with that tree, it produces those pink sort of puffball looking blooms.
Yeah. It's
Some
invasive, but it is awfully pretty.
Right. It's native to South America, invasive here. And the leaves are this very compound, feathery sort of
blowing in the wind
shape. Yeah, it gives us very, very light, airy sort of feel to the whole plant.
Well, let's talk about some other things that you actually have, in real things. So, pineapple. I mean, everybody loves pineapple, and supposedly fresh pineapples are just to die for. But
yes, absolutely. If you've ever had a fresh pineapple, you'll know what I'm talking about. So we've got a bit of a mess here, but this is actually the growing part of a pineapple. So it's this rosette of leaves, and it's related to bromeliads. So if you have any of those at home, you'll notice that sort of whorl of leaves that makes like a little cup-like structure that would hold water.
Yeah.
And so what will happen is eventually when this thing goes to flower, it sends up a little stalk, and then you see like a baby little pineapple forms up there. And as it matures, you can then harvest it, eat it, and you can hack the top of that thing off and grow a new one. That's what I did. So I got this pineapple in Hawaii when I was there, and brought it back. It's one of the things that the USDA will let you take out of there.
I know,
And in fact, I've heard of some people, they just pack an empty suitcase so they can fill them up with pineapples and ship them back.
Well, why have you got this Spanish moss in?
Well, so Spanish moss is our closest relative to this group of plants. So you'll see this in the coastal plain and areas along rivers and stuff. It likes higher humidity, and it is epiphytic. Spanish moss is hanging from those tree branches, but it's actually a very small cousin of a pineapple.
Wow. What's this big fella behind us? We can just leave him there and they'll get a picture of it for us.
So behind us, I have one of these plants that might commonly be called tea, T-I.
Oh, okay.
And it's closely related to things like that corn plant, a Dracaena, if you're familiar with those, in that same kind of group. And as botanists, we like to move things around. So it might have been in the lily family at one point in time, and then it was closer to agave, and now I think we put it in with asparagus.
Asparagus?
Yeah, so in the asparagus family.
Yeah.
There's a good dish that I tried making at home because I had some tea plants and I had some elephant ears in the backyard called lau lau pork, or you can use different meats, but lau lau. And that really means just leaf. So you first wrap the meat in the soft elephant ears, and you'll wrap it a couple times in those elephant ears, and then you use the tea leaves, which are a little more rigid and tough, to wrap the outer part of the elephent ears.
Hold it together.
Yeah. Almost like a tamale or empanada or something like that. And then you basically steam it or slow roast it. I think traditional methods would be a pit of hot coals, and then you just kind of cover it with some other leaves.
They are some native plants, and maybe you'll come back sometime and talk about what they're trying to do to keep some of the invasives at bay and save the native plants. Would you be willing to do that for us?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, all right. Cool. Well, thank you so much. I sure appreciate it. I don't know if I'll ever get there, but I enjoyed getting a vicarious trip. Thanks, Herrick.
Excellent. Thank you.